Chapter 24. The Profitable Prophet Plan.
To Allah's lions who fight for His religion go the spoils that come from their prey.
Since the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior, we have been conditioned to expect a continuance of Islamic greed and violence.
Tabari. The Prophet had been given possessions of Mecca following his conquest, but he only stayed a fortnight. He received news that the sheep-herding clans of Hawazin and Thaqif were encamped at Hunayn, intending to fight him.
These Arabs knew what you know. Mohammad in Islam spelled trouble. Muslim militants had raided most every village in north, west, and central Arabia. They would have attacked eastern Arabia too, but there was nothing there.
Ishaq and Tabari. These tribes assembled after hearing about how the messenger had conquered Mecca, thinking that the Muslims were intending to invade them next. When the Prophet heard that they had decided to defend themselves, he went out to meet them at Hunayn, and Allah, the Great and Mighty, inflicted defeat upon them. Allah has mentioned this battle in the Koran.
The reference is from the 9th surah, a revelation that must have dribbled down over a prolonged period. It includes segments that were intended to rally the troops and justify the attack on Mecca, all the way through the subsequent raids on Byzantine Christians the following year. As you may recall, Allah's Hunayn recitals were sandwiched between his assault on the family unit and his attack on Christians and Jews. The Islamic God called the people who had invented him unclean and barred them from the house they had built for him. Regarding the battle, he cried,
in Quran 9, verse 25, "Assuredly Allah gave you victory on many battlefields, and on the day of Hunayn, behold, your great numbers elated you, but they availed you not, and you turned back in retreat. But Allah did pour His Sakina on the messenger and believers, and sent down forces which you saw not."
These would be Allah's angels.
He punished the infidels. Such is their reward.
Allah was as eager to take credit for the savagery of his followers as Mohammed was to make his butchery appear godly. It was a symbiotic relationship. The Arabs, who had not yet been infected by Islam, weren't adept fighters.
Ishaq. When Malik,
the Hawazin chief,
decided to fight the apostle, he had his women, children, and cattle accompany the men. He explained that by bringing them, the men would have to fight to defend them.
There are some interesting sidebars here. First, Malik, whom the Muslims describe as
the chief sheep-tender, sent out spies to obtain intelligence, but they came back with their joints dislocated. When he asked what had happened, they said, "We saw white men on black horses. Before we could resist, we were struck as you see us now."
Tying men's arms behind their backs and hanging them from meat hooks so as to dislocate their shoulders is still a preferred form of Islamic torture. Second, Mohammed also sent out spies,
mingled amongst the crowds, gathering information,
much like they do in Europe and America today.
Ishaq. When the spies learned Malik's plans, they returned and informed the Prophet. Muhammad in turn informed Umar,
the second Caliph,
who called the Prophet a liar.
Horrified, the Islamic spy said,
"Umar, you may accuse me of lying, but you have denied the truth for a long time."
The fact that Umar became Caliph proves you don't have to believe Islam to benefit from it. Muslim leaders play their subjects like a maestro conducts an orchestra, or more correctly, like a Khan plays his mark. Third, the Muslims were overly fixated on booty. The spoils had been divided before the battle was even waged.
Tabari. Since the Hawazin and Thaqif had marched with their women and children and flocks, Allah granted them as booty to His messenger, who divided the spoils among those Quraysh who had recently embraced Islam.
I want to thank Mohammed and his companions for making this so easy. They have once again validated my theory. The motivation for Islam was sex, power, and money. having conquered the Meccans, acquired the Kaaba ink, and compelled the Pledge of Allegiance, it was time to demonstrate Islam. With 2,000 Quraysh in tow, Mohammed raided 2 tribes. He divided their wealth, enslaved their children, and offered their women as a spoil, as a godly bribe. And by giving preference to the Meccans, he made them mercenaries. While the Prophet didn't yet control their minds or hearts, he held sway over their wallets. Tyrants throughout time, political, corporate, and religious, have ruled in like manner. While marching to attack the Arab tribes, Mohammed conned some pagans out of their armor and their swords.
Ishak, lend us your weapons so that we might fight our enemy.
Tabari tells us that Baker said,
Today we will not be overpowered on account of small numbers.
Then in Tabari, Volume 9, page 8, we learned that arrogance soon led to disaster.
The messenger marched with 2,000 Meccans and 10,000 of his companions who had come with him to facilitate the conquest of Mecca. Thus there were 12,000 in all. Muhammad left Shams in charge of Mecca.
Muhammad liberated Mecca the same way Stalin liberated Eastern Europe. As they marched towards their prey, the great Sulami said,
In Ishak, this year the ghoul has smitten people in the midst of their tents, as the ghoul has many forms. All wild ass is inedible. The Hawazin tribe is diseased, so I think that Allah's apostle will attack them in the morning.
The next hadith reports,
Tabari and Ishak, we descended through a sloping valley at the twilight of daybreak. But the enemy had gotten there before us, and we were waylaid by them in a narrow pass. They had collected themselves and were fully prepared. By Allah, we were terrified. As we descended, their squadrons made their first assaults on us as if they were one man. Our people were routed and fled, no one turning to look back. Allah's apostle withdrew and cried, Where are you going? Come to me! I am Allah's apostle! I am Muhammad, son of Abdallah! It was to no avail. The camels just bumped into one another as the Muslims ran away.
Pathetic, isn't it?
Allah's apostle withdrew and cried, Where are you going? Come to me! I am Allah's apostle!
Muhammad's militants were under no illusions. They were out for easy booty, not some religious crusade. They were pirates because stealing was easier than working. They didn't believe Muhammad was an apostle any more than I do. They just ignored him. Sage advice, if I do say so myself. It got so bad, Tabari reports,
when the polytheists overwhelmed the Muslims, the Prophet got off his mount and started reciting verses in the rajaz meter. I am the Prophet, it is no lie. I am the son of Abd Muttalib.
The first line was pathetic. The second was a confession. Abd Muttalib had been the last in Qusay's line to control all aspects of the Kaaba ink. Muhammad was using this scam to establish his authority.